Now, baby, don't worry. If it troubles your mind,
today is Weed Your Garden Day.
it'll all wash
It
away,
is also
girl,
Sewing Machine Day. It's Cupcake
in the
Lovers Day.
river of time.
It's also the day we say good morning and welcome to the artist who has more than 10 top 10 hits, at least 3 number ones, and a brand new member of the Grand Ole Opry, the renowned T. Graham Brown. Good to see you.
Hey, y'all. So I qualify for 2 out of 3, Weed Your Garden Day and Cupcake Loving Day. I'll have to go get a cupcake, but I definitely got to go weed the garden today.
I think that's a perfect activity. Have a cupcake, weed the garden. It's going to be warm where we are. I want to ask you first. I know you performed on the Grand Ole Opry probably 300 times or so in your career. I presume the last time you stood in the circle, it felt different.
Well, actually, yeah, it does. I was actually standing in the circle last night.
Where are you?
And yeah, and Saturday night, this past Saturday night too. Yeah, man, it's awesome. It's you know, I've been going out there for 40 years, so I'm glad they finally pulled the trigger and asked me to join. It's just awesome. Biggest thing that's ever happened in our career.
So you were born in Georgia, and I have it on pretty good authority. You were born in Georgia, but you called Nashville home now?
Well, we've been here since 1982, so yeah, it's home now.
I have a pretty good investigative staff, and I think maybe they've solved one of the great mysteries of the universe, which is, what does T stand for in T. Graham Brown? Is that something you share with people, or is that a highly kept secret?
Oh, no, it's not a secret. So what did your crack staff come up with?
Well, they told me that you are very similar to the famous Anthony Soprano on The Sopranos. A lot of people called him T, short for Tony, and I'll presume your name is Anthony, and probably as a kid you were called Tony.
Yes, you're exactly right. You win a cupcake.
Oh, great.
Hey, you know what's funny? It's funny you said that about The Sopranos. On the very last scene of the last Soprano episode,
yes,
they were sitting in this diner. It had a jukebox on the table. You remember those things?
Yeah, sure.
And they zoomed in on the jukebox, and it was one of my records.
Are you serious? I'll have to go look at that scene just for that. That's great.
I think Sheila had somebody take a picture of it, and we got it framed. It's pretty cool.
So they were playing Journey, but they were showing T. Graham Brown.
Yeah, they zoomed in, and there I was.
I like it. I like it a lot. So you've got kind of one of those unique names of country music. It stands out, but my crack investigative staff tells me your son also has a name that you don't hear every day.
Acme Geronimo Brown. And the reason behind that is Acme is a Greek word that means the highest or the best. That's why everybody names their business Acme this or that. And Geronimo, because Geronimo was a great leader,
yes,
and shaman and a really cool guy. So Acme Geronimo Brown. Yeah, I don't think there's another one walking the earth with that name.
I thought Acme was just a company that delivered dynamite to the Coyote.
I know. That's what a lot of people think.
So I got to ask you, speaking of unique names, tell me, what is T. Graham Brown's rack of spam?
Oh, I used to have a band in Athens, Georgia, a soul band, a horn band, and I don't know, man. I was probably, when I thought that name up, I was probably in an altered state. But knowing myself back then, I would have been about 22, maybe, something like that.
Well, so you were in, and one of the reasons that it's a giveaway on your name, you were in Dirk and Tony. Was that your first band that you were in?
Yeah, I went to high school with this guy I went to high school in Athens, Georgia. And went on to attend the University of Georgia. So I got with a boy I knew from high school that knew how to play guitar, and we went in the little Holiday Inn lounge there and played a guy a few songs, and he hired us. We didn't have any idea what we were doing, but all of a sudden we were playing 5 nights a week, so we had to go learn some songs and started playing for the kids, all the sorority and fraternity crowd, and I did that for 3 years. Then I was a preppy, and I came home one day, and by dumb luck, the local PBS station was airing a documentary on David Allan Coe, and I never had heard of him. And I saw him, and I was fascinated, and I said, I'm going to be that guy. So I quit Dirk and Tony. I dropped out of college. I grew my hair out long, got tattooed, and had a country rock band for 3 years, and then I put the Rack of Spam together and did that for 3 years, and then we moved to Nashville when Sheila finished up her master's work at Georgia.
Well, right on cue, 1982. I know it's kind of a tale as old as time. Moved to Nashville, want to be a successful artist, but got to figure out a way to survive while you work on that. I had no idea that probably some of the jingles I was singing to in the early to mid 80s were in your voice. You worked for what, McDonald's and KFC and maybe Budweiser and even Almond Joy?
Man, I did so many jingles back then. I did a McDonald's commercial, and it aired on Super Bowl. And once that came out, my phone started ringing anytime they needed a raspy kind of voice. And, man, I did Hardee's, Burger King, Wendy's, KFC, Miller, Coors, Budweiser, Stroh's, Coca-Cola, Dr. Pepper, 7-Up, Mountain Dew, all the cars and trucks. Sometimes you feel like a nut, sometimes you don't. I did that for 7 years. Yeah, man, I used to sell all kind of stuff.
I think what people probably don't realize is that you were the narrator on that famous Taco Bell campaign, the Run for the Border campaign that they launched. That was your narration voice.
Well, I sang all those jingles, and I actually appeared in all the commercials that they aired on TV, and that was a lot of fun, man. I did that for 4 years. You know, they would fly me out to Hollywood about every 6 weeks, and we'd go out in the desert and film a Taco Bell commercial. I had more fun doing that. It was awesome. I got to work with Little Richard and Count Basie and Ray Charles, a lot of people, man. It was a lot of fun. I was in people's living rooms back then probably 7 or 8 times a night, 7 days a week. People probably reached for the channel change. They probably changed the channel on me so many times it ain't funny.
So while you were doing that, and before your first album took off, we'll get to that in a second, you were a songwriter for, I think, EMI you were working for. What is a song that is not in your catalog that we might be surprised that you wrote? Is there one that comes to mind?
Oh, well, I had a few cuts, man. I never really had a hit on anything other than my stuff, but I mainly wrote for me.
Yeah.
But we pitched a few songs, and but I never really had any big hits.
Your album in '86, I Tell It Like It Used to Be, is an interesting, if you just look at the way that album transpired. So Drowning in Memories was the lead track, and it went to like 39. The title track went to, I think, 7. Then I Wish I Could Hurt That Way Again went to 4. And so each time, as you release something from that album, it gets higher and higher until you hit #1 with Hell and High Water and with Don't Go to Strangers. I guess you felt like at that time you were off and running?
Oh, yeah, I was having a good time, man. Back then, it was different than it is today. I had what they call a singles deal. Capitol didn't sign me to an album deal, so it was a 6 singles deal. So Capitol had the option of putting out 6 singles. So the thinking was they'd put out a single and see how it did. If it didn't do good, they could put out another one and another one and another one. But Drowning in Memories went high enough in the charts that they called for an album. So I went in the studio and finished an album, and I had sung the demo. I sang demos too for a living, and I sang hundreds of demos. And one of the songs I had sung the demo on was "I Tell It Like It Used to Be," and it was still sitting on the shelf at Tree Publishing when we were looking for songs, and we thought, man, let's, revisit "I Tell It Like It Used to Be." And so we went to the studio and cut it, and Capitol put it out, and it was a hit. And that's when I finished the album. When "I Tell It Like It Used to Be" came out, that was a big hit for me.
But I think what it makes a case for is that you were being evaluated on a track by track basis rather than them being into an obligation to release. But so it showed that you were able to climb the charts higher each time and said, I'm finding my audience. There's a demand for my type of music. And the reason I think it's interesting is that as a teenager in the 80s who maybe didn't like the steel guitar and the banjo and the heritage of country music, you were bringing an R&B influence and a horns influence and almost a beach music influence to the genre. And I think you're one of a handful of people that changed it for the better.
Well, thanks, man. I've always had one foot in soul music. It's odd that you said beach music because Dirk and Tony was a beach music act. That's all we played for the kids back then was beach music. So that's how I got started was on beach music, which is an R&B style. So I did R&B, like I said, for country rock for 3 years, and then back into soul for 3 years. So I was a soul man when I moved to Nashville.
In 1988, things probably changed a little bit more with Darlene, and that may be, I guess that could be considered the signature. That's the hooky song that you think of, I think, when you think of you. Who's Darlene?
I have no idea. Three friends of mine wrote that song,
okay,
and played it for me, and I liked it, and I put the cassette in my back pocket, and I had a meeting with my producer, and I walked into his office, and I said, man, I think I found us a hit. And he said, I think I found a hit too. And he opened his briefcase up, and I laid that cassette down, and he pulled the cassette out, and it was the same song.
The same song. Wow. That's
we thought we better cut it.
It was meant to be. A member of my team sent me a note the other day when he found out you were going to be on our show, and he said that you've had such an interesting career, but you've had an interesting career of duets with people that maybe would not be your expected duet partners. Carol Channing?
Carol Channing, 94 years old when we did that. Can you believe that? Wow. That's probably the wildest, oddest duet I've ever done. I've sung with a whole lot of people, and golly bum, the list is very long.
Yeah. Well, Lulu Roman, Tanya Tucker, I mean, just to name a couple. But
the Beach Boys.
Yeah.
And Leon Russell, Vince Gill, just a lot of people. So and I got a new soul record coming out. I went in the studio and recut a bunch of 60s soul songs, and Dwight Yoakam's on it, and Winona, and Tanya, and Sammy Hagar, and Sam Moore from Sam and Dave, and Eddie Floyd, and Randy Houser, Zach Williams, this Christian act that's really good. Little Anthony from Little Anthony and the Imperials is on it. And
so when will From Memphis to Muscle shows be available? I see it's coming soon.
I think it comes out on August the 4th.
Okay.
Right now, we've been releasing tracks. We released the Tanya duet a couple of months ago, and the one that's out right now is sitting on the dock of the bay with Randy Houser. And then I think they're going to release the Winona duet, and then it'll be time for the album to come out.
So through our conversation, I've kind of been coming to intersections, like at certain times in your life, and you went this direction, then you went that direction. I kind of want to come to about 10 years ago. Will you tell me about Forever Changed and what that is?
Well, Forever Changed is a gospel album that I did, and we got a Grammy nomination on it too. It was really cool. We were on a no-name label. It was like a homemade label. I'm surprised anybody ever heard it, but it's more of a, it's not a traditional gospel album. It's more of a positive message album, I'd say. And the Oak Ridge Boys are on it. Jason Crabb, one of the best Southern gospel singers out there, Jimmy Fortune, Sonia Isaacs, Leon Russell's on a couple of 3 tracks. I'm trying to remember who all else is on there.
So Jeff and
Sherry.
Yeah. Jeff and Sherry and Sonia and Jason and the Oak Ridge Boys, they can sing with about anyone they want to. I think it says a lot they wanted to appear with you on your album called Forever Changed.
Well, I'm friends with all of them, you know. I've been knowing all of them for a long time, and I got their phone number, and I just called them up, and they said yes. It was great. No, you know, nobody said, well, let me think about it. They all immediately said yes. The coolest thing, man, Leon Russell was one of my very best friends, and to get him in the studio was just a joy to watch him work. And, you know, he passed away. That might have been the last thing he did before he passed away. I can't say that for sure, but anyway, he did a great job.
So tell me about how the Lincoln Jamboree opportunity came about. Do you know anything about the Jamboree? Have you been there before, or just looking forward to being there for the first time this weekend?
Well, I think this might be the first time that we've been there. I'm sure our booking agent set that show up, but yeah, I've kind of researched the Lincoln Jamboree and the history of it, and I'm looking forward to going in there. I think it's probably going to be an up-close and personal kind of show, and which is my favorite kind, actually. I do a lot of theaters and, you know, old movie theaters that they've restored, like from the 40s or 30s, and I like doing those shows where I can talk to the audience and tell stories and, you know, play music. That's my favorite kind of show.
I saw a performance you did.
I still do. I was going to say, I do all kinds of shows, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I do, you know, from festivals to fairs to places like the Lincoln Jamboree. I play all kinds of places.
Well, that's one of the reasons one of the things I was about to ask is I saw a performance you did on a country diner show. It was kind of an intimate type of setting where the set was a diner and a counter. And anyway, it just looked really intriguing to me, and I enjoyed that performance.
Oh, thank you, man. Larry's Country Diner, Larry Black had a show. Yeah, that was fun.
Well, you'll be at the Lincoln Jamboree on Saturday night. I really, really appreciate the time, and a pleasure getting to meet you and learning your story. If you have a reason to come back, please do.
I will, man. It's so funny coming to Hodgenville because I used to have a studio upstairs here at the house, and I did an album probably in 1995, and Marty Stewart came over and Steve Warner came over, and we had a good time recording and eating soup and pimento cheese sandwiches. But I took the I had to do some overdubs and then mix it, and so I went to Hodgenville, and there was an old church there, and a guy named Mark, and I think his name was Goodman, or I think it was Goodman. Had a studio in this old church, and he had down in the basement was Sunday school rooms that he had put beds in. And I remember staying in Hodgenville for about 3 days finishing up that album. So I've been to Hodgenville before.
Make sure you ask for some Leahy's while you're there. I know they've got a great restaurant at Lincoln Jamboree, but Leahy's is what you want while you're there.
What does that mean?
It's a burger. It's a grill kind of a diner burger. You'll thank us later for telling you about Leahy's.
Awesome, man, because I always want to know what kind of food they got. Yeah, I read that they have a restaurant there, so
Yeah.
I'm sure I'll be eating there.
Well, we look forward to your visit to Kentucky. Thank you, T. Graham Brown. We'll talk to you soon.
Well, thanks for having me on your show, and God bless you and all your listeners, and I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. That is Grand Ole Opry member T. Graham Brown coming to the Lincoln Jamboree this Saturday night. We got to get to a break. We'll come back. Got plenty more on the way. Hang around here on In the Know.